feedstocks that can reduce
That's a great challenge. Recently, you have to do it in combination with a lot of different initiatives. Some organism, investigation, research, cultural result.
以后啊，加个微信以后，我们要求你担任我们公益推广大使。
没问题，谢谢你。一会儿我们交流，一会儿完事儿了我们交流。看看需不需要测试一下声音。
Let's just see if we need to check our sound. Can we get the sound people to check for a moment?
Do
you think we need to check the sound first? All right, okay, we're running.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2023 annual meeting of the New Champions. You are now at the Existential Fight to Restore Nature session, co-hosted by the World Economic Forum and Phoenix TV. Now introducing myself, my name is Nancy Zhu, a young global leader and your host today. I'm the anchor of signature TV show Talk with World Leaders of Phoenix Television. And today's television debate will be broadcast live on the World Economic Forum's official website, global social media platforms, and Phoenix TV's WeChat video channel and Phoenix Show app. 女士们、先生们，欢迎大家参加2023年新。
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the annual meeting of the New Champions 2023. Our discussion is the existential fight to restore nature. This is hosted jointly by WF and Phoenix TV. My name is Nancy Zhu. Now, this TV discussion will be hosted on the WF's website, global social media, and all video platforms of Phoenix TV, as well as our WeChat platform. It will be broadcast simultaneously on these platforms, and I'd like to thank all of our online and offline guests for being with us here today.
Here today because we all care deeply about the environment that we live in. Climate change, habitat destruction, pollution are all helping, but not helping, pushing the health of the earth to the edge. Now, according to the flagship report by WWF International, wildlife populations have declined by nearly 70% in the last 50 years. Now, these are astonishing figures, meaning that tens of thousands of birds, reptiles, mammals population have declined by 2/3 since 1970. Deforestation, overfishing, pollution, all majorly driven by human activity are the culprits of these decline. Now, showing you other figures, UN data has shown that human damage to our land is accelerating, with up to 40% now classed as degraded. And the WWF is saying that we are losing 27 football pitches worth of forest every minute. Last year, COP15 concluded with the adoption of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, setting the flagship 30 by 30 target. Now, this is aiming to restore at least 30% of our land, inland waters, coastal and marine areas by the year of 2030. We're now 3 years on from the 1 Trillion Trees initiative and 1 year on from China's pledge to plant and conserve 70 billion trees. And therefore, it is the exact moment for stakeholders to come together today and see what has been achieved so far, and more importantly, what can be done more ambitiously to drive forward private action. Well, According to UN Environment Program, we need an investment of $8.1 trillion between now and 2050 to contain some of these emergencies. So this session aims to inspire global business leaders to seek collaboration and deliver socially and ecologically sustainable solutions to our communities. How can the global community invest in and support the conservation of flora and fauna, the restoration of degraded land and sea? We're going to hear out from our 5 panelists today, coming from different parts of the world, who've all got something interesting to share with us. So I'm going to introduce our 5 panelists. 我接下来要介绍一下今天参与
I will introduce the 5 panelists who are here with us for our televised discussion. Firstly, Chen Peng, who's Secretary General of the China Green Foundation in China.
of the Green Foundation of China.
Welcome.
We have also with us 蒙牛集团总裁兼执行董事
Chairman and CEO of the Mengniu Group, Mr. Jeffrey Lu Minfang.
Chief Executive Officer of Mengniu Group. 美国贝索斯地球基金副总裁
Vice President and Deputy CEO of the Bezos Earth Fund, USA, Charlotte Perra.
Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Bezos Earth Fund. We also have with us TCL 科技集团副总裁 TCL 公益基金
Vice President of TCL Technology Group Corporation and Chairman of TCL Charity Foundation, Yuki Wei.
President of the TCL Technology Group Corporation. Last but not least, we have 厦门大学讲席教授
Professor Dai Minghan, Chair Professor of Marine Environmental Science at Xiamen University in China.
Environmental Science Department of Xiamen University. Welcome. Welcome our 5 panelists. Now, before we start, I would like to remind our audiences present today and also our online audiences, if you're going to share about our session via your social media platforms, please use the hashtag AMNC23. 那要在场提醒一下我们的观众朋友们。
Let me just remind you, if you're online or offline, that if you want to share content relating to our discussion, please use the hashtag, which is AMNC23.
那我们的
Thank you very much. Now, our first round, I will start us off with the first round.
我的第一个问题啊，
My first question is for Secretary General Chen Peng. We are aware that fulfilling international commitments is the first step towards sustainable development. In 2022, China successfully hosted the 15th COP of the Convention on Biological Diversity and the 14th Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Wetlands, Ramsar. And that resulted in the passing of the Wuhan Declaration. Also, during the Davos annual meeting, there was a commitment made to plant and restore 70 billion trees. Now, I'd like to ask you the following question. Can you elaborate on the specific institutional initiatives made by the Chinese government to address climate change and sustainable development through forestry and grassland? Thank you very much. And this has been an important priority for the Chinese government. Now, in May of 2022, the State Council published a series of guiding opinions. That was in 2021. And in August, the NDRC set out a reform plan for the 14th five-year plan for grasslands and forestry. And a State Council leading office has subsequently drafted a work program. Now, in March, the State Forestry Administration, together with the Ministries of Finance and the NDRC, set out a plan for greater use of the carbon capturing capacity of forests and grasslands. Now, that aims to more greatly harness the carbon capture capacity of these areas so that they can make greater contribution to China's environmental development. Now, thank you very much, Secretary General Chen. Now, you've mentioned just a few of the institutional commitments made through, for example, policies and laws by China in building up ecological civilization. And that also involves involving the population to a greater extent in the fulfillment of these goals. That's an important safeguard. Thanks very much for that, for kicking off the discussion. Now, I'd like to ask Mr. Jeffrey Lu. Your company, Mengniu, has recently released an ESG report. Can you share a little bit about the commitments that your company has made, and as a corporate entity, what have you actually been doing to help protect the environment? Well, thank you very much. You may be aware that we are a producer of dairy products and nutrition products. Now, you'll be aware that in the past 30 years, the average height, physical height of Chinese people has risen by 6 to 7 centimeters. Now, we've been a part of that, but we're also part of a big industry train, starting from agriculture to the processing to actual sale. Now, we have taken a series of important steps, including our issuing of an environmental and social governance report. That was the culmination of a strategy which we label as a green strategy for more sustainable development. It involves action on our carbon emissions in particular. Now, you'll be aware of the contribution to global CO2 of dairy cows in particular. Now, actually, in the upstream segment of our industry, it accounts for over 90% of our carbon emissions. So what we are trying to adopt is a strategy for the entire value chain, which involves the involvement of our partners in finding ways to reduce carbon emissions in a strategic manner. And we have the national targets of reaching a carbon peak in 2030 and carbon neutrality in 2060. But we have our own strategy, which is called Zero to Zero. Now, that is an industry-wide discussion on how to actually get to those targets. For example, packaging, we're requiring a minimum of 80% of recyclable materials. So these are things you're telling the suppliers to do. That's right. And palm oil in particular has to be 100% sourced from certified sustainable plantations. It cannot be the result of any ecologically destructive practices when we source it. That's our requirement. That's a commitment that we make publicly, and it's something that we have to fulfill together with our partners. Now, you've also mentioned the 70 billion tree planting commitment. Now, there's a desert in Inner Mongolia called the Ulaanbaatar Desert. Now, in the past few years, we have completely remodeled that desert with a planting of a total of 98 million trees in that area. So it now looks completely different. And through the cyclical effects of that planting, we have transformed 200 square kilometers of what was desert into agricultural land, and it's organic agriculture, in fact. And so we're using new ecologies and new practices to change the ecology that our upstream value segments operate in. Now, the food industry and the dairy industry are industries in which our rating is the highest as a company, and that is the result of a lot of strategic thinking. We talk with our partners about how specifically we reduce emissions, so technical means relating to agricultural feed and so on, and also measures relating to efficiency. If you use the same amount of land, can you produce more from that land? In the past 30 years, in the upstream segment, we've raised efficiency by about 35%. So we can use 35% less land, 35% fewer resources to produce the same amount of protein and nutrition for our customers who are looking for healthy food products. So carbon reduction has involved technical and efficiency measures, and to some extent logistics measures as well, to reduce our consumption, especially of resources in our industry. And that means giving people the nutrition and health products they need while using fewer resources. Now, so we make big commitments and then we break them down into what we have to do every 3 years, every 5 years, every 10 years, and so on. And these specific targets are made part of our management practice, our incentive planning even, and our manager's own assessment system.
有目标，有方法。
So this is our goal. We have to have incentives and we have to have assessment so that we can really implement our strategy of ESG. So maybe I took a bit long. So thank you very much. It's very clear. So we've seen some media coverage of Mengniu ESG's report, and we've seen that our company has made significant improvements, for example, in terms of management of downstream suppliers. So suppliers of packaging, you have specific requirements for them. At the same time, you're also thinking about how to improve your efficiency, how to use energy more sufficiently, or how to recycle energy so that you can cut your carbon emissions. You also mentioned something that was very interesting, that Mengniu has made all the objectives as part of the criteria of assessment of the managing team. That's very interesting. Thank you again for sharing. So the next question.
Ms. Charlotte Perra for the third question. Now, we know that the Earth Fund, this was established by Jeff Bezos in 2020 with a commitment of $10 billion with the aim of addressing climate change and preserving the natural world within the current decade. How does your fund select and prioritize projects while maintaining climate justice through things like innovation and technology? Please.
Well, thank you, Nancy. I'm very happy to be here, and I was going to start with a few words about the Bezos Earth Fund since we're so new,
yes,
but you
please.
did that so beautifully that I don't need to, so thank you. We are committed at the Bezos Earth Fund to conserving and restoring nature. Our conservation work is built around the 30 by 30 global target that you mentioned earlier. This is the goal to protect 30% of land and sea by 2030, and it is now, as you mentioned, embedded in the global biodiversity framework, which was one of the important successes of the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity COP last year. I should note we are also committed to transforming food systems, and it's been very exciting to hear what Mr. Liu described about what his company is doing. Look forward to staying in touch on all of that work. When we think about prioritization in our conservation work, we start with that 30 by 30 goal. Then we look at areas that are particularly rich in biodiversity and carbon stocks, and where there is a sign that the government is committed to conservation and effective management of conserved areas. Our portfolio in conservation has been growing quickly. It's reached in the last 2 years about $500 million. The geographic areas of focus for us so far are the tropical Andes, the Congo Basin, the Eastern Tropical Pacific, which is a marine preserved area, transnational marine area, and now Canada, and we are just starting to work on conservation in the Brazilian Amazon. We work by supporting coalitions. So for example, in the tropical Andes, we made 12 grants that are now supporting something like 140 local organizations. And we also work in coordination with other governments and other donors. So it's really about bringing a lot of actors together, especially local organizations. And I should note that we really emphasize supporting indigenous peoples and local communities in our conservation work. Our restoration portfolio is also growing. It's reached more than $100 million so far. We have an initial focus on Africa and the US, and we're just starting restoration work in Brazil. In restoration, we prioritize landscapes that are, of course, important for climate and nature, but also for human well-being. And we believe that local leadership is key to success in restoration efforts. So we put an emphasis on funding small groups, local groups, small businesses that can drive restoration locally. We also fund training and capacity building and, very importantly, monitoring of the projects. So I think I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm. But how do you select projects? I mean, you talked about the various regions and what type of projects have been selected. How do you select them? What criteria you have in terms of selecting them?
It's really that. It's looking where there are the best landscapes for biodiversity, for carbon stocks, and to work with governments and local partners to actually effectively conserve, protect, and manage those areas or restore.
Understood. Okay, well, thank you very much, Charlotte, for your insights. Let's now move on to, we have Wei Zong here from TCL. 那我想问魏总的问题呢，也是
My question for Yuki is that TCL is focused on advanced manufacturing, and I also know that TCL is now part of our web nature community. So why did you decide to participate in this nature community? So maybe I'm a bit different from our co-panelists today. I've been working as a philanthropist for 25 years, 26 years for nature protection, nature conservation. I am a newcomer. I work in a tech company for global strategies. So me personally, the reason why I want to participate in this community has to do with my children. So for the last 25 years, besides my job, I participated in charity work, protecting women's rights, girls' rights, and also focusing on work in rural areas, rural teachers, rural children. I've been working on these projects for more than 20 years. I'm originally from Beijing, and then I moved to Shenzhen. Before, I was focusing on people and education, and then I moved to Shenzhen with my children to Shenzhen. There's a mangrove wetland in Shenzhen where it is a wetland park very popular among children, and my children, there are no exceptions. So I brought them to wetlands to observe, to take photos. So I was influenced by my children, and then I started to pay more attention to nature conservation. And also, we initiated a fund of Shenzhen mangrove protection, mangrove wetland protection. So this time, participating in the nature community of the World Economic Forum, it's the same reason. Because even before, I focused on poverty elimination. But since 2 years ago, my company, we started to pay more attention to environmental issues, and we're making several initiatives in this area. Even though we're a tech company, so maybe a few words on my company. We are a tech company called TCL, and we work in several sectors. Our operations cover more than 168 countries and regions. And our slogan is that we want to use the best technology to bring along harmony. So the concept harmony is actually our DNA. Is very important for us. 2 years ago, we published our TCL Green, that is our global strategy. This is the mission of TCL. This is our new brand, and we want to communicate with our clients the value of TCL. We had a series of events, several media coverage. We want to engage more people to the work of sustainable development. So recently, for TCL, green development is part of our strategy today. For the last few years, we were trying to promote the development of new energy or photovoltaic power. We also want to contribute to the new energy transition and also for the new dual carbon goals. I believe that we can also make a contribution to achieving these goals. Next month, in July, we'll have a global lunch. This is just a teaser. We are going to make an important commitment to the world. We're going to publish our specific goals in terms of carbon peaks, emissions peak, and carbon neutrality. The event will be held in Wuhan. Also, in our factories, we're trying to make factories greener. For now, our green management of facilities, they have gained 11 certifications, domestic and foreign certifications. And on the roof of these facilities, we have solar panels. We're also trying to increase the green energy mix in our total energy usage. Also, for our supply chains, from R&D to manufacturing to sales and recycling, we pay close attention to each part of the supply chain. We hope that we can offer more green products for our consumers, for our clients. In the area of finance, we're also trying to have green bonds, TCL bonds, TCL and other products, other offerings, in order to bring along actors from upstream and downstream for us to cut carbon emissions altogether. Thank you, Yuki, for sharing what your company is doing with us. You have been doing a lot of doing a lot of actions and the stories behind it. We see that you're trying to fulfill the social responsibility of TCL. I believe that improving leadership is also a way to achieve the goal. And also we also look forward to the new launch in Wuhan next month. We would like to know what are your goals and what are the actions that TCL will make in the future. Thank you very much, Yuki. So this is the end for our the last question for our first round of questions. It's for Mr. Dai, for Professor Dai. So we're talking about things happening in land. So here we're going to go into the ocean, the marine ecosystems. So now, ocean restoration, ocean conservation. What science gaps and opportunities exist to drive action on restoration and conservation? Thank you, Nancy, for your question. I'm very glad to be invited here today. So first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about the topic today. Today we see that climate change, pollution, loss of biodiversity, those are three main challenges that humankind has faced. It's unprecedented, and those are continuous challenges that we're facing today. I believe that for the next 30, 50 years, we'll still coexist with these challenges. That's my first point. My second point is that we owe nature a lot. So, which is to say that we're not using our nature capital in an efficient way. So, I would like to echo with the topic today. We have to do restoration. We have to do restoration with technology in order to use nature capital more efficiently, and also to build a foundation for our next generation. And Nancy also mentioned issues of the marine ecosystems. So maybe in the audience, maybe people don't know the technical details of the ocean. We all know that this we have Titan exploded in the Atlantic, and we lost 5 explorers in the marine. So we see that ocean is there are a lot of things we don't know about the ocean yet. So we talked about mangrove. It is part of the marine ecosystem. Actually, we lost 50% of mangrove ecosystem for the last few decades. So this is a global challenge, a global threat.
Now, this in turn has led to a lot of ocean issues. Now, there's been a drop in pH levels of 0.1 over the past 200 years. But what we can also see is that over 1 billion years, we've had the evolution to the present state, and about 50% of the oxygen that we have comes from ocean origins. Now, that's gone down 2% in the last 200 years. Now, in evolutionary terms, that is a very rapid drop. So, when I talk about the oceans, the ocean to the earth is like water to the human being. You simply cannot do without them. Now, when I talk about the oceans being big, dark, and deep, now you have scientists on board at TCL and Mengniu, of course, but the most advanced manufacturing and IT technology is very advanced, but we've only systematically mapped about 20% of the sea floor. So there's a lot of unknowns when we come to the ocean. Secondly, you can't look at the ocean as an independent thing. It's part of a much larger system, which is all connected. So the crisis in the oceans is a result of broader factors. Thirdly, when you look at financial leverage when it comes to industrial or technology sectors, it has a big impact. So if we look at getting the economy to bounce back, then it relies to a large extent on the ocean. Now, finally, a lot of people see the ocean, people are still acting like this, they see the ocean as a sort of infinite dustbin that can handle huge amounts of pollution and rubbish. Now, I think systemic measures are very important, especially for restoring forests, and we need to take similar measures to restore the oceans. Now, when we come to post-pandemic restoration or or economic recovery, there are new economic opportunities there for the ocean-based economy. Now, we need a new technological revolution. Intelligent technology needs to go underwater. And this is a new area of application for intelligent technology. Now, financial systems at the same time are continuing to develop, and blue financing is an exciting new area, and that also means that there's a lot of attention being devoted to the oceans, but I'm afraid it's still not enough. So there needs to be more focused attention on the better use of blue financing and the improvement of ecological governance. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Professor Dai, for sharing in particular some of the unknowns that we face with the ocean. And you've talked a lot about the possibilities for investment, but most of them being on land, investment relating to the oceans being insufficient. Now, you asked also whether we can use scientific means to better protect the marine environment, and that may involve remote sensing, AI, and various other new novel technologies. I'm sure that lots of people will have ideas based on that to take things further and faster when it comes to the ocean.
Round of discussions. We've heard from each of our panelists from their area of expertise. And we have seen that both public and private sectors have their own practices to demonstrate that scalable recovery can be achieved. What I would like to do in the second round is for our panelists to share with us what actions you've taken. Give us some case studies to help us understand how we can achieve net zero emissions, benefiting our nature, as well as China's high quality development in the future. Okay, 那我们还是从我们陈秘书长从您这儿开始。
So we'll start again from Mr. Chen, Secretary General Chen. Now, I'd like to ask you the following question. What experience can China share with the international community regarding scientific land greening and effective ecological restoration practices? And what are the main challenges China faces in those efforts? Right, thank you very much. Now, for many years, the Chinese government has been paying a lot of attention to scientific land greening and effective ecological restoration practices. It's cracked down on large-scale destructive practices, and the overarching slogan has been that green mountains and blue seas are worth their weight in gold. And I think the effects of that top-level direction have been very, very clear. Now, we have been rolling out a national strategy that involves the more effective use of very limited land and water resources. Now, that aims at scientific restoration of forest cover. Secondly, there's been planning relating to scientific greening. The NDRC and the Ministry of Land and Resources have issued a protection and restoration plan, and the State Forestry Bureau has set out an action plan for the 14th five-year planning period. And there's been a similar action program set out by the NDRC. Now, these have set out specific planning targets. Now, thirdly, we continue with our institution building. The NDRC, the MOF, and the Ministry of Forestry have set out plans for key ecological areas such as the Yellow River and the grasslands and so on to achieve better localized results on a pilot basis for ecological restoration, including the reversal of desertification. And at the same time, provinces and even cities and districts have set out their own systemic governance measures. Fourthly, we are working on more specific greening measures at the local levels, in particular localized projects on stopping desertification and changing the color of the land back to green again. And on the basis of appraisals of these efforts, we will be rolling out further actions, in particular in an integrated manner. These targets will be integrated into the appraisal and performance assessment systems. Fifthly, we continue to consolidate the scientific bases for these efforts, in particular with the development of a series of key technologies such as fire prevention in forest areas. And that aims to put our efforts to make China's land greener on a more sustainable footing. And at the same time, it shows that there is very effective implementation at the local level and guidance of what localities do in fulfilling these targets. Now, of course, if you make the land greener, its productivity also rises. Since 2012, we have increased forest cover by 1.2 billion, and we've restored desert of 360 million square kilometers. Now, these are official figures. Now, forest cover has significantly increased in the past years, and the stability of ecosystems continues to improve as well. Now, this is a step to achieving that vision of a more beautiful and greener China. Now, the issues that we face are two in character. Firstly, forest ecosystems are still not of high enough quality. Now, our areas of grassland and forest are less than 1/3 of the world average per person, and the institutional mechanisms are not yet rational enough to raise those. And some areas continue to become older and degrade. Now, we are facing a still severe challenge with land degradation. Now, it's also becoming increasingly difficult to increase forest cover. Now, this tends to take place mostly in northwest and southwest China. Northwest China has poor soil quality and relatively limited water resources. And so if you reforest there, you need to continually monitor the areas where trees have been planted for them to actually survive. So we will be working in the future together with the WEF's program to advance scientific initiatives to increase the forest cover and increase the forest quality in China. Last year at the meeting, the central government announced that by 2030 we would plant or protect 70 billion trees. And there are now some major companies involved with commitments under that framework, and I will be happy to see more of the companies represented here involved with that. So I'd like to encourage you very strongly as companies to get involved and also issue your own commitments in that respect. Now, I think that if China manages to do that, we will be able to share Chinese experience as a contribution to the world's struggle to reverse this loss of nature. I think we can work together with our partners around the world to achieve that vision of a beautiful Earth in which our human community can live.
详尽的发言，我们看到政府办
Thank you, Secretary Chen, for sharing with us all the government policies and what are their targets, what are our goals in the long term.
在科技方面的创新以及
Also, you mentioned tech innovation, and also we have to mobilize the whole society to participate in our work. My next question is for Jeffrey. We noticed that when President Xi visited Bayinur, Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region, earlier this month, he proposed to adhere to green development and build an important ecological security barrier in northern China. As a company located in Inner Mongolia, how is your company balancing ecological restoration and production goals? Can you provide a case study? So, during the first round, I was talking about our supply chain, the whole ecosystem. So we have to start by the seed, by grass in the farm, agriculture. So we are highly dependent on agriculture. So our base is in Inner Mongolia, northern part, and northwestern part of China. This is our base. We know that in northwestern part, we see several trends. For example, green energy. Our deployments, our facilities over there, we use a high amount of green energy. I believe that it is an advantage for us because they have rich wind and solar power in that area. So when we're planning, we have to also integrate green energy in our usage. So we have to reduce our reliance on traditional energy. That's my first point. My second point is our impact to the environment. We're taking actions in two parts. The first part is that in Bayinur, actually the area that I mentioned, the desert that I mentioned, is close to Bayinur. Actually, the Yellow River flew by that area in the past. So underneath, it was we have a rich resource of water, underground water. So when we're establishing farms over there, we have to use local resources. I mentioned that we planted many trees there. This year, maybe we can reach 10 billion trees. So first of all, we have to fix the sand, secure the sand, and then we have to improve the quality of soil, and then we can start growing corns, even pumpkins, cucumber, and also other feeds for cows. So when you look at it from above, it was a desert before, but nowadays we have built out an oasis over there. So they look like a circle, several circles. It looks like a circle because that is our irrigation system. So in the short term, we didn't have any gains. But in the long term, can contribute positively to the environment. I believe that so today we already have organic milk produced in the desert. And our clients really like it. They're willing to pay more for organic milk from the desert. They're willing to pay more to protect the environment with us. So this is a problem of raising awareness. When people realize that what they're paying for a bit more expensive, but they're protecting the environment, it can create a virtuous cycle. So we are now committed we want to expand our farmlands over there. We want to turn the desert into an oasis. So another case is in Yingchuan. We built a new facility. It's called 3100 facility. We have a large amount of output. And we only have, normally, we'll have to have a large number of employees, of workers to work there. But because we have digital technologies, we don't have to hire that many workers to have the same output. And also our facility, the size is not very big, but it's very efficient. We use also green energy. So this is achieved by digital technologies. Also, in this facility, we don't have division. We don't have any division. It is an open platform, open digital platform. So our suppliers, everyone, all the different actors can communicate with each other in this platform, which has improved the efficiency. So maybe another example. So for a product be produced and to shop. So maybe we need 5 or 6 transits. But now with digital platform, we can reduce the time, we can save a lot of energy, send the same product to our consumer, our clients. So you know that we are trying to make our production greener. And on the other hand, we have to reduce energy loss. We have to reduce the resources we use. And to achieve this, we have to use different technologies. In China, we have 27 green facilities. There's the first net zero facility is in Yunnan. It was completed last year. So these are some ways for our traditional companies to participate in sustainable development. If you only look at our company, look at our Mengniu, we are a facility, we're a company, but there are also upstream and downstream actors working with this. So once we start to work differently, we also have an impact on actors of upstream and downstream. So I believe that we're very excited for the future because we see that there are many opportunities, many business opportunities. And also we have opportunities to do the transition, and also to improve our capacity. So even though we see many challenges, we also see many opportunities for us to have a long-term sustainable development strategy. Thank you, Jeffrey. It is very clear. Thank you for sharing with us your case. So due to time limits, we still have 3 panelists to share with us their examples.
About 10 minutes left, so let's try and finish. We'll try and finish on time. Now my question goes to Charlotte. How does the Earth Fund aim to address the intertwined challenge of nature and climate by adopting a systematic approach and leveraging scalable solutions? Please.
It's a very good question. Scale is absolutely key. And if you are a philanthropist working in climate and nature, you are keenly aware that philanthropic resources are very small compared to what's needed, compared to the scale of the challenge. One of the ways that we start to get at leverage at the Bezos Earth Fund is simply by working with other philanthropic donors. So, for example, we helped create something called the Protecting Our Planet Challenge Coalition, which is a group of 11 philanthropies, including ourselves, that have collectively committed $5 billion toward the 30 by 30 conservation goal. Another way that philanthropy helps generate scale is simply by creating capacity, building capacity in civil society organizations, in indigenous and local communities. But of course, we have to go beyond philanthropy and leverage public and private resources if we want to get anywhere. Those are absolutely critical, and they have to be deployed in ways that are effective and durable. One of the interesting models here is something called Project Finance for Permanence, which we've been supporting through the Enduring Earth Partnership. The way it works is that funders and civil society organizations work with governments and local communities to design a plan to protect and manage, effectively manage conserved areas through a conservation trust with independent governance that then provides funding on the basis of performance. And we've supported these Project Finance for Permanence, PFPs they're called, in several countries now. Another example that we haven't been involved in directly, but it's an important example, involves debt. Restructuring debt for conservation. They're sometimes called debt for nature swaps. There was an example earlier this year where Ecuador restructured $1.6 billion of its public debt in a deal that will generate $450 million for Galapagos preservation. And then there are important public-private initiatives, some of which have come up already, the LEAF Coalition, the 1 Trillion Trees Initiative, which was greatly bolstered by China's commitment to plant 70 billion trees at Davos this year. Ultimately, it's really about realizing the economic value of protecting and restoring natural ecosystems. For example, for forest protection to be durable in the Amazon, the states and cities of the Amazon need strong, growing economies that encourage standing forests and discourage deforestation. And that's not an easy thing to do, and we're funding some work to help with that as well. So those are a few examples of how we think about scaling.
Thank you very much for sharing all those details with us, Charlotte. We've now moved on to Wei Zong和 TCL 呢，也在积极开展。
So for Yuki, TCL, in terms of your ESG strategy, can you share with us some of your case-specific examples? So because due to time limits, I'll just talk about our experience briefly. Nancy, you mentioned that President Xi visited Bayanur, Inner Mongolia. So actually, President Xi also visited our industrial park in Inner Mongolia, our industrial park in Inner Mongolia. And President Xi mentioned that green development is the only path we'll take. We have to promote the upgrade of green development. So this really, we know that this is what we're heading for, the direction we're heading for is the right direction. So during the Winter Olympics of Beijing, TCL had a project of solar power. So it's through solar power we raise money from 1,000 poor households. And this is a project that will last for 20 years. So this is just one example. We understand that in education, clean energy, and animal protection, those are also areas that are important in sustainable development. We selected several schools in rural areas. We offered them solar panels. so then they can have enough energy. They won't have electricity shortage. And in addition, if there are energy left, they can sell sell the electricity, and they can become income for schools. We'll expand our project to 600 schools in rural areas. So among the schools that are already in the project, many of them are in mountainous areas. Also, those areas have pandas and other protected animals. So we're not only helping children to understand environmental protection, but also animal protection. So another case I would like to mention is we're providing clean energy project for minorities. We have a project that can combine solar power and agriculture. So our goal is to avoid land degradation and desertification. So I will not go into detail. But with this project, the best thing with this project is that they also offer livelihoods to local communities. So
two last examples. Industrial wastewater. Now, that's a very difficult issue for us, of course, but we have a sub-company making circuit boards in Shenzhen, which has been supporting a wetland in the Shenzhen region by reuse of industrial wastewater. And that is now a very beautiful tourist site for local people. And in the US, I've got a case which is the last thing I wanted to share with you. We've been working with the EPA in the US on a project to take back electronic products. And that was popular in particular during the pandemic. People didn't have to get out of their vehicles and they could have their old electronic products taken back. Now, we were given the first award among the EPA's environmental awards a couple of years ago, and we were also highlighted as a key public benefit project in the US. Okay, thank you very much, Yuki, and despite the limited time, you've given us lots of very specific examples, including what you've done with ecological projects in schools and also educating the next generation. Now, our final question is for Professor Dai. Now, if you talk about science achieving scalable public-private projects in the ocean sector, what can science do in particular? All right. In simple terms, I have been working with the UN on a 10-year program, Coastal SOS, a 10-year program for using technology to support the oceans. Now, what Coastal SOS does in conceptual terms is that it's brought together 10 research institutions from mainland China, Hong Kong, including HKUST, and some from Thailand and Malaysia. And we have looked at 6 areas in East Asia, such as the Bay of Thailand, the Bohai River Estuary, and the Yangtze River Estuary. And we've had 6 government and non-government foundations supporting this project to leverage science to achieve a better public-private partnership, leveraging science to produce more sustainable best practices for the use of the ocean by business. Now, we've worked on specific sea governance projects, including financing. Now, these are just pilot projects because the ocean is a very dynamic, large, interlinked system. So these are just individual projects that I'm talking about here. Now, I have a personal idea here. Given what you have to do is, firstly, stop doing harm, secondly, protect, thirdly, restore, in order to reach the goals that we've been talking about today. So, an important point of departure is wetlands near the sea. If we can stop degradation of those wetlands and protect them and restore them to some degree, then that restoration has to be not just for scenic purposes, it has to also be for genuine ecological purposes. I mean, a lot of restoration projects can almost be done by robots, but this isn't the case here with coastal wetlands. Now, if China is able to do this, then we'll be able to restore 30 to 40% of the ecosystems that have been lost since the 80s. Then that is useful for carbon capture, that is useful for biodiversity, and it's a very useful point of departure. That was just an idea that I came up with. Well, thank you very much, Professor, for your idea.
Continue to escalate the role of public sectors and private sectors, including businesses, investors, entrepreneurs, become increasingly crucial. Private sector engagement promotes innovation, investment, and the development of scalable solutions, which are all essential for the restoration of our nature. By adopting sustainable practices and reducing their environment footprints, companies can certainly contribute to the global goal of mitigating climate change and promoting biodiversity conservation. Thank you, our panelists, Ms. Pera, Lu Zong, 陈秘书长, Wei Zong, and 戴院士，非常感谢大家的分享。And thank you very much, everyone, for being with us here today, and thank you for our online audiences. I'm Nancy Zhu. Thank you and goodbye.